The hall of the Galactic Council was silent in a way that felt heavy, like the pause before a storm. Thousands of alien delegates floated, stood or rested in seats shaped for bodies humans could barely imagine. At the center of the chamber, a small blue image of Earth rotated slowly, fragile and bright against the cold stars. Human representatives stood on a narrow platform below the council ring. They were unarmed. They had been ordered to show respect. Still, every human stood straight, shoulders tight, eyes forward. The voice of the High Arbiter echoed through the chamber, translated instantly into every language. Humanity has exceeded acceptable limits. A low murmur spread across the council. The Arbiter continued, calm and distant. Your species expands too fast. You adapt too quickly. You reverse engineer what you are given and improve it without permission. You fight even when defeat is certain. This behavior destabilizes the balance of the galaxy. The Earth image flickered. Several human delegates clenched their fists, but none spoke. For the safety of all civilizations, the Arbiter said, the Council has voted. Humanity will be removed from Earth. The words landed like a physical blow. A human woman stepped forward. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook, removed. How? The Arbiter did not hesitate. Exile. The image of Earth vanished. A red planet replaced it. Mars, the Arbiter said. Your neighboring world, barren, cold, low gravity, limited resources. You will be transported there with minimal supplies. No military vessels, no expansion rights, no external communication. A pause followed, deliberate and cruel. You will remain there, permanently. The silence that followed was different. It was sharp, dangerous. Many alien delegates watched closely, expecting shouting, begging, or threats. That was how weaker species reacted. Instead, the humans were quiet. One of the human men slowly lifted his head. His eyes moved across the chamber, studying the faces above him. When he spoke, his voice was low. You were afraid of us. The council reacted instantly. Energy shields flared. Guards moved. The Arbiter's tone hardened. You're cautious. The man gave a thin smile. That's not caution. No more words were allowed. The sentence was final. Within hours, massive council ships entered Earth's orbit. Cities across the planet watched the skies darken with metal. There was panic, yes, but not chaos. Human governments activated emergency plans written long before this day. Trains moved, shelters opened, data was copied, children were evacuated first. Alien observers expected collapse. It did not come. Human engineers worked without sleep. Scientists argued, calculated, and planned. Soldiers helped civilians load supplies instead of preparing to fight. There was no victory to win here, only survival. When the transports arrived, they were crewed by human standards. Old designs, limited systems, just enough to keep humans alive for the journey. Council believed this was mercy. As the last ship lifted from Earth, millions watched their homes shrink into a distant blue light. Some cried, some brayed, some stared in silence, burning the image into memory. Mars waited. The journey was short, but tense. Systems failed twice. Gravity fluctuated. Oxygen levels dipped. Each time, humans fixed the problems themselves before alien supervisors could respond. That detail did not go unnoticed. Mars filled the viewports at last. Red dry. Dead. The Council fleet remained at a distance. They would not land. They would not help. The first human ships touched down in a wide plain surrounded by broken rock. Dust storms rolled across the horizon like walls of smoke. The temperature was far below freezing. This is where they end, one alien observer said quietly. On the surface, human boots touched Martian soil. For 3 minutes, nothing happened. Then the humans began to move. Temporary shelters were deployed faster than projected. Power units activated. Teams split without orders, each person knowing exactly where to go. By the end of the first hour, heat was flowing. Oxygen was stable. By the end of the first day, the first underground dig began. The council analysts frowned. Digging that fast was inefficient, wasteful. The humans did not stop. On day 2, a major life support failure struck one of the shelters. Pressure dropped. Alarms screamed. Alien observers leaned forward, ready to record the first deaths. The humans sealed the breach in 12 minutes. They used parts stripped from another system. It should not have worked. It did. On day 3, something unexpected happened. A signal pulse left Mars. It was weak, short, almost nothing. The Council flagged it immediately. Humans were forbidden external communication. Technicians checked the data again and again. The signal did not target any receiver. It was not a message. It was a calibration ping. Why would they need that? One analyst asked. No one answered. On the surface, humans continued building. They did not spread out. They went down, deeper. Tunnels formed. Reinforced chambers followed. Old ship hulls were melted and reshaped. Mars dust clogged filters, so humans redesigned the filters. They were not surviving. They were settling. At the end of the 3rd day, the human leaders gathered inside a pressurized chamber carved into Martian rock. The walls were rough. The air smelled of metal and dust. One woman looked around the room. They think this breaks us. A man nodded. They sent us here to disappear. Silence followed. Then another voice, calm and cold. Good. They all turned. If the galaxy wants to forget us, the voice continued, let's give them something they'll never be able to ignore. Above Mars, the Council fleet watched the planet rotate. No fires, no riots, no collapse. One observer finally spoke, the thought spreading through the chamber. They should be dying by now. The Arbiter said nothing. Its eyes remained fixed on the red planet. By the end of day 3, Mars should have been silent. Mars did not forgive mistakes. On the 4th day, the planet reminded the humans of that truth. A dust storm rose without warning, not like storms on Earth, but like a living wall that swallowed the horizon. Fine red particles slammed into shelters, scraped against metal, and clogged every exposed system. Solar output dropped sharply. External sensors went blind. Inside the underground chambers, warning lights flickered as power levels fell faster than predicted. From orbit, alien observers finally relaxed. This was the moment they had been waiting for. Mars storms were known to last weeks. Without stable power, humans would suffocate, freeze, or turn on each other. Several Council analysts began drafting extinction timelines. None of them noticed that human activity, instead of slowing, increased. Inside the tunnels, humans reacted with a speed that came from long habit. There was no shouting, no panic. Engineers rerouted power manually, crawling through narrow shafts with toolkits strapped to their backs. Scientists shut down non-essential systems without debate. Soldiers formed work lines, hauling heavy equipment by hand when machines failed. Children were moved deeper underground where pressure and heat were most stable. Every person had a task. Every task mattered. The storm howled above them, but below the surface, Mars echoed with human voices giving calm, clear instructions.
Oh.
This was not the first hostile world humans had faced.
Oh.
It was simply the closest. By the 6th day, food became the next problem. Rations had been calculated to last, but the storm delayed surface operations. Alien observers watched as inventory numbers dropped into dangerous ranges. According to Council projections, hunger would weaken morale within 48 hours. That did not happen. Humans reduced portions without complaint. Scientists activated experimental growth units never meant to be deployed so early. They used Martian soil mixed with recycled waste, adjusting chemical balances through trial and error. The first crops should have failed. The soil was wrong. The radiation was too high. Yet within days, green life pushed through red dust. The observers marked it as an anomaly and moved on, missing the deeper truth. Humans did not wait for perfect conditions. They forced progress out of bad ones. On the 8th day, the Council attempted subtle interference. Communication satellites adjusted their orbits, disrupting local magnetic fields. It was meant to cause small failures, nothing obvious, just enough friction to slow development. Instead, human sensors detected the change. They did not know the cause, but they recognized the effect. Within hours, humans rewired systems to compensate. More than that, they learned from it. They mapped Mars's magnetic weaknesses and adjusted their infrastructure to exploit them. When the interference stopped, the human systems did not revert. They were stronger than before. The Council quietly removed the tactic from consideration. By the 10th day, Mars no longer looked like a graveyard. Heat signatures dotted the surface where reinforced access points had been built. Underground, entire sections were sealed, pressurized, and stable. Humans moved through tunnels with confidence now, not caution. They had learned the planet's rhythms, its dangers, its limits. Alien analysts compared the data to historical cases of exiled species. None matched. Most civilizations broke under isolation. Humans seemed to compress, growing denser, more focused. One observer described it as gravity, as if the pressure of Mars was pulling them inward, forging something harder. Then came the first true loss. A tunnel collapsed during an aggressive expansion, killed 3 workers instantly. Sensors caught the moment. Alien delegates leaned in, waiting for disorder, grief, blame. Inside the human settlement, the response was quiet. The bodies were recovered. Names were spoken. Work stopped for exactly 12 minutes. Then it resumed, with reinforced supports, adjusted angles, and new safety limits based on what had gone wrong. The dead were not used as warnings. They were used as lessons. To the Council, this was deeply unsettling. Most species avoided pain. Humans studied it. On the 12th day, another signal left Mars. This one was stronger, still unfocused, still not a message.
Council.
Systems struggled to classify it. It was layered, complex, almost experimental. Technicians argued over its purpose until one of them froze, eyes widening as understanding formed. "It's a test," he said. "They're checking how far their presence reaches." The room fell silent. Humans were not asking if they could be heard. They were measuring who was listening. By the 15th day, the storm finally weakened. When the dust cleared, the surface revealed changes the Council had not expected to see for months. Defensive structures ringed key entry points. Energy collectors were embedded into rock, shielded from future storms. Heat vents released controlled plumes into the thin air. Mars looked occupied. The Council had intended exile. What they saw looked closer to colonization. Some delegates argued this was a violation of the sentence. Others hesitated. Humans had not expanded outward. They had gone inward. Technically, they were still obeying the rules. Inside the deepest chamber, human leaders studied projections of their own. Their models no longer assumed rescue or mercy. They assumed permanence. One voice suggested slowing down, conserving strength. Another rejected it. "Expect us to fail," the voice said. "As long as they expect that, they will watch us. As long as they watch us, we are not safe." The room understood the unspoken conclusion. Survival was not enough. Humans needed leverage. On the 18th day, Mars produced something that made the Council nervous. Energy output spiked beyond what the planet's limited reactors should allow. Sensors confirmed it was controlled, stable, and intentional. The source was deep underground, shielded from observation. Analysts demanded explanations. Unfit. The technology was partly alien, partly human, and partly something new. Reverse-engineered components had been stripped down and rebuilt with improvements the original designers had never considered. The Council had feared human curiosity before. Now they saw its result. By the 20th day, fear replaced curiosity. Mars was no longer a passive problem. It was an active variable. Human signals increased in complexity, testing wider ranges, brushing the edges of Council detection nets. It felt deliberate, like fingers tapping on glass. The Arbiter convened a closed session. For the first time since the exile, the question was not whether humans would survive. It was what they were becoming under the pressure meant to destroy them. On the surface of Mars, as the red sun set, human workers stood briefly in the cold, looking at the darkening sky. No one spoke of Earth anymore, not because it was forgotten, but because it was understood. This was their world now, not by choice, but by force. And humans had never wasted force. On the 21st day, the Council realized something too late. Mars was no longer a prison. It was a forge. By the 22nd day, Mars had grown quiet in a way that frightened the watchers above. Not the silence of death, but the silence of control. Heat signatures stabilized. Energy output flattened into smooth, confident curves. There were no spikes, no frantic corrections, no signs of strain. To the Galactic Council, this was wrong. Every model they had predicted chaos by now. Instead, the red planet behaved like a disciplined machine. The Arbiter ordered deeper scans. Probes pushed their sensors to the limit, trying to see beneath the Martian crust. Most of the signals bounced back, distorted, scrambled by layers of interference that had not existed before. Humans had not only built underground, they had learned how to hide. On Mars, the humans felt the pressure tightening. They knew they were being watched more closely than ever. Engineers noticed subtle changes in orbital patterns. Scientists detected long-range scans brushing against their shields. No one needed to explain what it meant. The Council was getting nervous. That realization did not bring comfort. It brought urgency. Human leaders gathered again in the deepest chamber, surrounded by humming systems and rough stone walls. Faces were thinner now, eyes sharper. 22 days of constant work had burned away hesitation. What remained was focus. They reviewed one final plan built from stolen fragments of alien science, human instinct, and desperate creativity. It was risky. It would reveal them. Hiding forever was not an option. The 23rd day tested them one last time. A deep tremor shook the tunnels, stronger than any before. Mars shifted, ancient stress releasing without warning. Several supports cracked. A reactor line ruptured. For a moment, alarms filled the underground city. Oh, dum 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 dum. Certain this was finally it. But the humans had planned for failure as carefully as success. Emergency seals dropped instantly. Backup systems engaged without manual input. Teams moved before orders were spoken. Within an hour, the damage was contained. Within 3, repairs were underway. The quake became data, its patterns mapped and absorbed into future designs. What should have been a disaster became an upgrade. On the 24th day, the humans finished assembling the core of their greatest creation. It was not a weapon, at least not in the simple sense. It was a network woven through the planet's crust, tied into Mars itself. It drew power from multiple sources, balanced loads intelligently, and redirected excess energy with precision. It could shield, it could amplify, it could speak, if needed, in a language of pure physics. Only a handful of humans understood it fully. The rest trusted them, because trust was the only resource that had not run low. Above, the Council argued. Some delegates demanded immediate intervention. Others warned that direct action might provoke a response they could not predict. The Arbiter listened, silent, watching the data streams. Something about the human pattern disturbed it deeply. They did not behave like a cornered species. They behaved like planners, nearing the end of a long preparation. The Arbiter ordered all fleets to maintain distance. Observation only, no provocation. It was the first defensive order the Council had given regarding humanity. It came too late. The 25th day began without ceremony. Mars rotated into light, its surface calm, almost peaceful. Inside the human settlement, work slowed for the first time since arrival. People gathered in central chambers, standing shoulder to shoulder. There were no speeches, no chants, just quiet understanding. Systems came online one by one, their hum deep and steady. Energy flowed through channels carved into stone, guided by human design. The planet itself seemed to breathe. Then the surge came. It was not violent. It did not explode outward. It rose smooth and controlled, like a tide lifting an entire world. Sensors across the system spiked at once. The energy signature was unlike anything recorded before, broad and layered, impossible to isolate. It rolled through space, touching listening posts, brushing communication relays, lighting up instruments light years away. The Council chamber erupted in alarm. Technicians shouted conflicting reports. Some systems shut down automatically, unable to process what they were receiving. Others kept running, feeding the horror in real time. Mars was no longer quiet. Mars was loud. At the center of the surge, a signal formed. This one was focused, intentional. It did not hijack channels or force entry. It simply appeared clean and undeniable on every major Council display. There was no encryption to break, no translation delay. The message had been designed to be understood. It showed Mars. Not the barren surface the Council remembered, but the reality beneath it. Vast underground structures, reinforced habitats, energy veins glowing like arteries through rock, humans working, living, building, children studying under artificial skies, engineers standing beside machines that blended alien and human design so completely Their origins were impossible to separate. The image shifted, showing power reserves, defensive fields, planetary-scale control systems. The message was not a threat, it was a demonstration. Then a human voice filled the chamber, calm, clear, unafraid. "You sent us here to disappear," the voice said. "You believed isolation would weaken us. You believed pressure would break us. You were wrong." The delegates froze. Guards raised weapons that suddenly felt meaningless. "We adapted," the voice continued. "We learned your systems because you taught us. We improved them because that is what we do. Mars is no longer a punishment. It is our home. We are self-sufficient. We are protected. We are united." The image changed again, this time showing the planet from space. Subtle distortions rippled around it, invisible to the eye, but deadly to hostile systems. Shield, not just of energy, but of control. "We are not asking for forgiveness," the voice said. "We are not declaring war." A pause followed, heavy with possibility. "We are informing you." The signal ended. For a long moment, no one spoke in the council chamber. Fear moved through the delegates in waves, unhidden now. The exile had failed. Worse, it had achieved the opposite of its intent. The council had not contained humanity. It had compressed it, focused it, forged it under conditions meant to destroy it. On Mars, the surge settled back into balance. Systems returned to normal operation. People exhaled, some laughing softly, others wiping tears from tired eyes. The 25th day was complete. The test was over. Humanity had survived exile, and the galaxy finally understood what that truly meant. The council chamber had never felt so small. Delegates who once spoke with certainty now sat in silence, eyes fixed on the fading image of Mars as if it might speak again. Data continued to stream in long after the signal ended, and every new report made the situation worse. Human systems were stable. Their energy output was sustainable. Their defenses were layered, adaptive, and unlike anything the Council had planned for. This was not a rebellion that could be crushed with force. It was a civilization reborn under pressure, sharper and more dangerous for it. The Arbiter finally broke the silence, its voice quieter than before. The exile, it admitted, had failed. More than that, it had created a strategic imbalance that could no longer be ignored. Across the galaxy, reactions spread like fire through dry air. Lesser civilizations watched the recordings in disbelief. Species that had once feared humanity now feared the Council instead. If the most powerful governing body in known space could misjudge a species so completely, what did that say about its authority? Trade routes hesitated. Military alliances paused. Every power began recalculating their future, with one question at the center of it all. What would humans do next? On Mars, the humans asked themselves the same question, but from a different angle. They did not celebrate for long. There were no parades, no speeches filled with pride. Victory had come too fast and too sharp to enjoy. The leaders met again underground, surrounded by the steady pulse of the systems that now kept an entire world alive. They understood something the Council did not. Fear invited mistakes. Some argued that now was the time to strike, to push outward while the galaxy hesitated. Others rejected that idea just as firmly. Humanity had not survived by rushing blindly. It had survived by choosing when not to fight. The final decision came quietly. Mars would not attack. Mars would wait. Not in hiding, but in plain sight.
Ow.
They would show the galaxy exactly what exile had created, and let that truth do the work. To that end, a new signal was prepared, not as a broadcast, but as an open channel. Any civilization could listen. Any could respond. The Council could not stop it without proving the humans right. When the signal went live, it carried no threats. It carried information. Humans shared how they had stabilized Mars, how they had turned weakness into strength, how they had survived without external aid. They did not give away secrets, but they gave enough to make one thing clear. Humanity was no longer dependent. They did not need permission to exist. Smaller worlds listened with awe, some with hope. For the first time in generations, the Council was not the only voice shaping the future. The Arbiter watched entire regions shift alignment in real time. Diplomatic messages flooded in, not demanding action against Mars, but asking for understanding, for caution. The galaxy was afraid, but it was also curious. That combination was dangerous. The Council debated sanctions, blockades, even preemptive strikes. Each option collapsed under scrutiny. Any move against Mars now risked open war, not just with humans, but with every civilization that had begun to see them as proof that the Council was not absolute. The Arbiter reached a conclusion it had never expected to reach. Humanity could not be controlled. On the surface of Mars, human children played under artificial skies, unaware of how close the galaxy had come to destroying them. Engineers refined systems that no longer barely worked but worked well. Soldiers trained not for invasion but for defense, their drills focused on holding ground, not taking it. Humanity was changing, shaped by exile into something quieter and harder. They no longer sought approval, they sought permanence. Days passed, then weeks. The Council fleets remained at a distance, watching, waiting. No attack came, no expansion followed. Mars did not send warships or demand territory. It simply existed, strong and unyielding.
Ow.
That restraint unsettled the galaxy more than any show of force. Power that did not need to be used was the hardest to challenge. The phrase began to spread through council chambers and foreign courts alike. Exiling humanity had been a mistake, not because it failed, but because it succeeded in the worst possible way. Eventually, a formal message arrived from the Council. It was carefully worded, heavy with political language. It spoke of reconsideration, of revised status, of potential reintegration. On Mars, the message was received without ceremony. Human leaders listened, exchanged glances, and dismissed it. There was no anger in their response, only clarity. They replied with a single statement: humanity would govern itself. Mars would remain independent, cooperation was possible, control was not. The reply echoed through the galaxy like a final verdict. The Council had lost more than authority. It had lost the right to decide humanity's fate. Other civilizations took note. Some began preparing their own contingencies. Others reached out quietly to Mars, seeking partnership, knowledge, or simply reassurance. Humans answered selectively, cautiously. Trust once broken was not given freely again. From orbit, Mars looked unchanged, red, silent, distant. But every power in the galaxy now understood the truth beneath that surface. The planet was no longer a punishment. It was a warning. Pressure did not destroy humanity. It refined it. Isolation did not weaken them. It united them. The Council had tried to erase a problem and instead had written a lesson across an entire world. Humanity had been banished to Mars. The galaxy would spend generations remembering why it should never make that mistake again.